Hello everyone, welcome to Limbo. My name is João and today I have the pleasure to share my conversation with Simon Ohler. So Simon is part of Depot, which if you've heard some of my podcasts, you know what Depot stands for. He's part of Twitter and is a community on Twitter with very interesting people. And a couple of weeks ago, my friend Jess, which was also a guest in the show, wrote a tweet asking if anyone knew someone part of Depot that should be interviewed by me for this podcast. And fortunately, Simon replied saying that he would love to. And, you know, I've known Simon for a long time. I've read his stuff. I follow him. But for some reason, I always like the proactivity to reach out. And so I was really happy that he replied and we were able to make this. This was one of the most interesting conversations I've had in a while. Like, I really like the way that Simon frames things. So we talked about a bunch of things: gaming, ADHD, his role, and how did he end up where he is, coaching. We also talked about making the balance between making something that you really want to give to people in order to help them to live a better life, and at the same time understanding that you do have some financial needs and how to balance these two things. We also spent quite some time talking about the village. The village is an approach to basically designing your life that Simon wrote about, and it was wonderful having him go into detail about how he thinks about that metaphor. So I think you're really going to enjoy this. Make sure that you go and follow him on the social media. The links are in the description, and make sure that you leave a like and subscribe and maybe leave a comment on our YouTube channel and or on Spotify. Yeah, that's it. Before you go though, quick note on your sponsors. The first one is, of course, the Socratic Experience, the school where I work on. We're trying to revolutionize education by using the Socratic method across all levels of education. You can know more about us at thesocraticexperience.com. Then we have Contexto, the non-profit that allows for Limbo to exist. And then, of course, the restaurant that gives the name to the podcast, Limbo in Lisbon. If you're in Lisbon, Google the restaurant and say that João, the old upstairs neighbor, sends you there. Maybe you have a discount, maybe you won't. You'll never know. You'll be in limbo until you ask. Okay? That being said, here's my conversation with Simon Ohler. Hello everyone, welcome to Limbo. Today I'm here with Simon Ohler. Am I pronouncing your last name right, Ohler? Is that
Ohler.
Ohler? Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So Simon, welcome to Limbo.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. Hey, Joe. What's up?
It's so good to have you here. I'm really excited about our first conversation. I gotta say, one of the things that I noticed is that both of us have guitars laying in the background, like
Yep.
kind of Eden. But that's when I know a conversation is going to be great, because if there are guitars in the screen, we're probably going to have fun. So Simon, I want to talk about a bunch of different things around your writing, around your coaching services, etc. But I want to start with a question. So, what is it about Starcraft 2 that makes it such a good game?
Great question. StarCraft 2 is a great game for me personally because it created a defining time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had to be brought into StarCraft 2 by my friend Sebastian, who I also had a band with. He was my music buddy, and he was like, "Dude, StarCraft is great. StarCraft 2 is coming out." That was in like 2009. I was like, "Zebi, I don't like real-time strategy games. Leave me alone." You know. He was like, "No, StarCraft is objectively good. We need to get into it." I'm like, pfft. So I started watching like Husky, StarCraft, and then later all the other commentators and YouTube people. And yeah, I got really into it. Thanks, Zebi. And I kind of got so into it that I became a StarCraft commentator myself, and then kind of quit the band. So sorry, Zebi. But that was meant to happen. It was life was progressing. These were my very early 20s, or even 19 when I was 19.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so good that I played and commentated and took part in the StarCraft community instead of going to university.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, the great thing about the game for me is that it was a sort of skill that I'm not a great studier generally, and this was like a skill that I voluntarily learned by watching a lot of the great Day 9, who's one of the great Starcraft teachers. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about strategy and economics. Basically, I remember it was like February or something, or March 2010, and Starcraft 2 came out, or the beta came out. And I was so bad, I couldn't play the game. And then I was like, I'm not going to play on ladder, which is like the competitive mode. Instead, I'm just going to watch Day 9 and watch like tutorials and absorb somebody playing and teaching. And then it was like June or July, and I was like, I'm going to queue up a ladder game. And I literally had like 0 games played in between. And so when I started, I was Copper League. That doesn't even exist anymore. Now it's Bronze League. But it was Copper League in the beginning, which is the worst league. And then I played my 5 placement matches, and I was Diamond. I was like, holy fuck. And I remained Diamond, and I hit Masters one time. That was quite a push. I wasn't that good. But I was like, holy shit, I just soaked this up. I didn't need to practice. I just soaked it up. So it taught me a lot about how I learn. And it was also great to understand sort of like the early game of a strategy game is all about, do I go greedy? Do I go aggressive? What do I do? So that's about StarCraft. Do you have, I mean, you can ask me more, but do you have anything to do with StarCraft as well?
Like I've always been one of those people that look at StarCraft and thought either videos. Like I remember when that came out, like it was a time where I used to buy video game magazines, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's such a great game," etc. And I always looked at it from the sidelines, thinking that looks so cool. I'm not ready for that. So I've never played it. I've watched a lot of people play it. I know that it's like one of these games where, you know, like it has like this enormous fandom, etc. And knowing that you were a commentator, I was like, well, it's so cool. And it brought back memories. And it's so interesting because before we started to record, we were talking about like these need for or the acceptance of like getting help and asking for help. And so interesting that the story that you're mentioning right now was, well, even though you didn't have to ask it, you could just absorb it by looking. But it's one of those examples of how you know, if you have a right mentor, or if you're in the right learning experience, you get to basically leverage a lot of that to future decisions. So before we go into help, I want to stick with the topic of video games for a little bit longer. So you have a project, or you had a project called Purpose of Gaming. Can you tell? And I have a couple of questions about that, but can you tell the audience like what was that about?
Sure. Yeah. So my background is that I like StarCraft also got me to working at Twitch, basically. Which is a great part of the story, and I've always loved gaming, as a kid especially, and well, as a kid especially. I mean, I'm still a kid and I still love gaming, so I love gaming. Period. Right, and I always faced resistance to gaming. Because gaming is obviously latently addictive, because it's like, but why? But why? That's the important question. And I believe that, you know, not all the addictive substances have a good side. Some of them are just obviously plain bad. But a lot of addictive behaviors or substances, or, you know, things that you can input yourself with, have a reason why they hit so hard. And so I wanted to, and in my life, you know, my mom, who was my parent raising me, was always like, you're always gaming, do something else. And it just became this classic, like, unaware, unconscious fight of like, you're gaming, do something else. And I'm like, what? You're not asking why I'm gaming. You're not asking what I'm playing. You're not, what's that about? And together with my friend Paul, and then I wanted to do some interviews after my time at Twitch, and sort of, always wanted to be a podcaster, but at the time I didn't really have the juice that was like 2019 or something. So we just went to an event together with a camera and a mic.
Yeah.
We're like, let's record some interviews. So that we called that interview series "Purpose of Gaming." And then after that, and it was me speaking like I speak to people usually about meaning, about upbringing, about motivation, about life, a philosophical, living well approach to life. And I asked people, what role did video games play in your upbringing? Because for me, I have a clear narrative that for me, and I worked this out while writing sort of the blueprint for what we wanted to be a big documentary, which we still might make, my buddy Paul and I, who's a great filmmaker and musician. For me, it was always clear, and we figured this out, that video games are great for ADHD kids, autistic kids, and people who are lacking proper parenting, as in they're lacking proper input. If you have any semblance of ADHD in you, then you know that it's hard to keep a to-do list. It's hard to do what you want. You sort of have a kind of, it kind of escapes you. You write the list, and as you're writing it, the upper part is already gone, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what? But if you play a video game, you're like, you know exactly what you need to do at all times. How is that possible?
Yeah.
The purpose of gaming is that games are a benevolent taskmaster. And kids need a benevolent taskmaster. Kids need, whether that's a father or a mother, archetypically it's a father. It's a masculine characteristic to be like, hey kid, come here, watch me do this, now you do it, kind of tutorial.
Yeah.
Tasks, reward, not unconditional love, but sort of the conditional love. It's like, well done, but actually well done, not just, I'm saying it because everybody gets a prize. No, you did that well. And if you didn't, I'm going to tell you how to do it better until you do it well. That's what a game does. And games are perfectly adjusted to that. Like single player games and multiplayer games put you in the arena and let you actually compete. So that's, in my opinion, the purpose of gaming, holding people, holding kids in a state where they can actually be useful in a world where, in my world, I didn't know how to be useful. Nobody told me, emptying the dishwasher is not being useful as a young, growing boy.
Yeah.
Like, making some music was pretty good, but even that, I couldn't really fully connect to it. Because I was missing this sort of, no, you can really do this. You can do this well. You can, get out, And so gaming was the thing that always helped me. And now I'm optimizing my life a lot. So things are fun and games. The most important things I do need to be fun and games for me.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Yeah, I love that. One of the discussions that I have the most, once again, when I started to work with high schoolers, I have this piece where I say that high schoolers are the key to a modern golden age. I truly believe this. But we need to change part of the education in order for that to become true in the long term. And so one of the discussions that I have with a lot of people, I've had it when I was working in Portugal, I've had it working in the US, is a lot of people see video games as an enemy for this kind of future where you have kids really enjoying themselves, and I fully disagree with this. I feel like the video games can actually be an awesome tool for kids to develop meaning, and even to process some emotions. So recently, my girlfriend got into the Life is Strange series. Have you played that?
I haven't played it, but I heard it's great.
Okay, so it's basically this game where you're basically making decisions, and that's affecting the overall story. And I remember watching. So she played. I didn't play. I sometimes I looked at the screen while I was doing something else, etc. But at the end of the day, she would always tell me, "So this is what happened today," and I was following the story, right? And so we watched the ending scene, both of us. I stopped doing what I was doing. I sit down on the couch with her so we could watch that movie played out. And by the end of it, we were both sobbing. It's it's extreme. Life is Strange 2 gets you there. And so, I was watching that, and then by the end of it, I was thinking about, this is such a great tool for, emotional processing, and you being able to look and empathize and develop all of these tools in terms of emotional intelligence. But I feel like a lot of times what happens is older people look at video games and they just assume, oh, it's just violence. It makes no sense. It's making kids more aggressive. It's taking their attention span or something like that. And that's not true at all. So fully agree with you. And I never thought about the ADHD like phenomena, because I have a lot of students that have that and they really enjoy video games, and I believe that maybe that even brings them like a sense of control, right? Whereas when I'm playing, like the kind of things that used to happen where I forget about A and B, like whenever I'm playing, that's just not the case. I get to do this, right? So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
If I may add one thing, there's this piece. I don't know if it's in part of one of the books by Visa, that's called like constructive ADHD or something. And he has this comparison comparing ADHD brains to a minigun. You know, kind of like these big fat guns that kind of have to gear up, so they go like, and they don't shoot right away. But when they shoot, they fuck shit up. You know.
Yeah.
I can swear here, right?
Of course, absolutely.
No fuck problem.
Fuck yeah, exactly.
Fuck yeah. And he's like, yeah, that's an ADHD brain. You gotta give it some time to gear up. But when it's in gear, it's like, you know, hide your kids, hide your wife. Because it's gonna make shit happen.
Explode. Yeah.
And video games make that very easy. You start up the game, you get into the game, you're like, maybe you haven't played in a week. What's in my inventory? What was I doing? And that's what you have to do when you sit on your table and you actually need to get some real life shit done.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, and so how can you, the big question that I also would love to solve and work on more in like coaching and education stuff is like, how can we, and we'll talk about the village, I think, because that's the gamification of a part of this.
Exactly.
Like how can I at my desk where I like to do work, how can I have an inventory, a quest log, a list of things, a journal of things that I have done, a list of the things that I still need to do, a list of the items that I have in my inventory to leverage. Like that's how life works. Mm-hmm. And games have just abstracted it well, and it feels like life should catch up to that.
Yeah.
Because it's way better interfacing than I don't know, like than anything. That's why I think what got me into like Teapot was the first few posters where I was like, what is that about? Was about like building a second brain and knowledge management. And since I got into Teapot, I got into Notion, and it completely changed my life. Because I have like, as an ADHD kind of guy, I have suddenly a persistent inventory in front of me that I'm still kind of shit at managing, but I'm kind of better than I had when I had no inventory.
Yeah, exactly. So, no. For sure. And I would also add, like, there's this great book called Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, which is basically like the story of like 10 different video games and the developing process of them. One of them being Stardew Valley, which I know you enjoy. I've read that book with some of my students last year because it was the end of the year, so I wanted to like bring something light, and it's phenomenal. Like if you go through it has like games that really worked out and games that were really really bad, and they walk through what happened in the teams, in the process, etc. And one of the things that I really enjoy was giving parts of that book to people that are always talking about how video games were bad, and just tell, well, read that chapter, understand like how the team around Witcher 3 works and what the kind of care that they have for that particular game. Then you can tell me something. And a lot of people were like, oh, okay, I never thought about it from that perspective. And so yeah, gaming is definitely something that I feel like even in terms of education in the future, we're going to see it integrate way more than it does right now. So Simon, let's go into your writing. You have a newsletter called The Time Is Now. Why that name?
When in Starcraft, the people had like everybody had like cool short nicknames like Flash or Bisu or Dagger or something like that. And when I joined the Starcraft scene, it's like I need a Starcraft kind of nickname. and often people used to do like lowercase, uppercase, so it looked kind of
Yeah.
cool. So for some reason I picked the name Drool, like saliva, kind
Yeah.
of, and I spelled it like a lowercase d, ROO capital L, so it kind of had this
Yeah.
frame from the D
Yeah.
and the L, and and then I joined Twitch, and I was like, this is like not tenable anymore, and I was like, what's a good nickname that I can carry on for eternity?
Mm.
Thought about using my real name. Had a different last name then. That wasn't my birth name. Ohler is actually my birth name, and I got it back. Other story. But so I was like, what? And I was just getting into like meditation, Eckhart Tolle. So I was like, aha, the now. The now is a good thing. The now is ever
Yeah.
present. The now is the thing I want to orient around.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked, and it was first actually a Twitter name, and I still have that account, Now Simon, Now Simon.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, this is how I want to live. I want to live in the now. I'm somebody who thinks a lot about past and future. I worry a lot. So I gave myself an ambitious nickname, And so then at some point I was like, I'm going to have a podcast, and the name is going to be The Time Is Now with Now Simon, kind of thing. And then when I created Substack, I picked that. So that's where that's from.
Yeah. So
Also a great song by Moloko.
Well, I don't know that, but I'll listen to it after the show. So I guess my question is, one of the things that I get from your writing, from your tweets, etc., is exactly that relationship with time. Like you just mentioned, you keep thinking about the past and the future, but you're aiming at the now. You got into meditation around that. So, like maybe let's start with that. Walk me through why and how do you get into this more philosophical side or meditation side in your life? Like what happened with that?
Sure. I it's always a bit carries a bit of shame to admit, but I think it's I prefer being open about it. I basically got into the self-improvement arm of PUA culture, pickup artist culture. When I was, I mean, you're really picking at my origins here, and it's kind of fun. I mean, exactly the Starcraft time, exactly that time during my first studies, living together with my bro Sebastian. I had a girlfriend, but I was like, what? I don't know, And now my shtick is a bit like I'm all about love, and I think back there I was also all about love, but I didn't know what love means. I hadn't experienced the way of, like, nobody talked to me about this, and I wasn't really loved right. I wasn't only loved wrong, but I wasn't loved right enough. I'm a bit of a optimizer, so I was like, yeah, I guess I have a girlfriend or something, but I don't feel like I have any agency here without knowing the word agency. I was like, I can't really make choices. I feel like I'm sort of on a train that's just going somewhere and I'm not deciding anything. And I feel like I should exercise some sort of decision making here.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, fast forward 10 years later even in my around 30, early 30s, in the last couple of years, going to like jazz camp and stuff, I felt like I was closing the last hatches on this. Where I was like, oh, okay, I have eros, erotic energy flowing through me. That's not just about sex. That's not just about love. That's also about engaging with the world and doing stuff and wanting stuff and making stuff. It's like, okay, and sort of. I mean, I'm sure the project isn't finished, but yeah, it was a 10-year all my 20s project. And so obviously the pickup artists weren't completely right about things, but they also weren't completely wrong about things, meaning that some of them understood that you're not supposed to get women with cheap tricks. You're supposed to develop yourself into a human being, if you so choose, a man, and then there are, of course, all these hyperboles. It's like, you have to be an alpha and you have to be this and that. But, dude, nobody was talking about this. And I grew up without a father. And the only father thing I had was video games. And that's not, what's the Kendrick Lamar line? I have to censor myself, but homie, don't approach her with that Atari.
Yeah.
Homie, that ain't good game. Homie, sorry. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, so who am I? How can I be a cool dude, a cool man, you know, and a fully fledged man? And
Yeah.
so that's when I heard about Eckhart Tolle for the first time, and I was like, aha, one can meditate. And yeah, I mean, far from today's teapot, deep Dharma, Buddha meditation, but Eckhart Tolle, a fellow German, had a spiritual experience, sat on a park bench for a few months, and it's like, yeah, just breathe, and the birds are so beautiful. You know, it's like, yeah, that's my style. And I was never a huge meditator, but I think a lot of the philosophy we're going for these days is based on meditation. You want to have this kind of window open where you're not so, you want to be reasonably impulsive, but you also want to have a chance to have a gap between a thought and an action, or and so on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's so interesting. So like, and I feel like it connects. It's part of the islands, or part of the cities on Teapot is definitely that part of meditation and Dharma, which I really enjoy. You like, and I want to connect that with your writing. So a couple of years ago, you wrote like this post on Medium where you mentioned like these triad of things that you need, like patience, motion, and consciousness. And I feel like I would love to understand like how many of these three things are coming from like the discoveries, because so let's help me understand, how do you get into this conclusion of having like these three different pillars, and how, like, you wrote that article a couple of years ago, is that something that you still practice, or you still embody? Was that an idea that you enjoyed back then, but in the meantime have transformed into a different thing?
well, first of all, I have to say that a feeling of great joy and amusement and pride is going through me, because I feel like a true podcast guest. You've really done your research, my friend. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I mean, dude, the fucking Medium stuff is so long ago. It's 2019. But yeah, I mean, it's fair enough. And yeah,
That's why I'm asking. Does it still resonate? Because I was looking
It
at
does.
that. Okay.
No, sorry, go ahead. You were looking at it?
No, I was looking at that, and I feel like, well, I see a lot of things on your writing that are still somehow resonating with these three ideas, like doing things that from on a conscious standpoint, being like the whole idea of the tree and the slow lifestyle being related with patience, and of course the motion that is just like going to the shop, or like going to the field and like grow your seeds, etc., doing the job. So I feel like it was kind of, the post itself was a seed for everything that you were about to write a couple of years later. But sometimes, like, I've had it happen where I bring something from a guest that they wrote a long time ago, and maybe they've already left that idea. But in your case, I was like, I don't think that that's going to be the case. I just think that the idea kept evolving, I guess. But I want to take your mind, or pick your mind on the beginning stage of that.
Yeah, you're honoring me, bro. I really appreciate that. It's all correct what you're saying. When okay, I'll answer your question, I promise, but I have to say what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, of course.
Like, when you bring this up like this, I'm like, Brother Joe is actually healing my ADHD right now, because this is the shit I forget. You know, this is like yes, you've been on the same path since 2019, which was, the article is called To Do What Is Right, and it's from April 29, 2019. So that's like the first spring of my sabbatical, right? So it's like, I'm like, what? I'm like in this, what should I do? Where am I? What am I doing? I'm in this early, deep sabbatical disorientation that I did sign up for. But it still hurt. It was like, what the fuck is this? And then fast forward to sometime last year, I wrote a note in my reminders app where I capture phrases sometimes that I want to influence me for a while. I wrote, "Writing will keep you on track." Why did I write this? Because I went back through all my writing that I knew of, sort of my public stuff. I was like, I'm feeling kind of cringe looking at it, but I wonder if this still holds. So I go through it, and I'm like, holy shit, it holds. He was right. He already had it. So that changed my life, because I was like, if I write more, like basically I found this out. I cannot write what isn't true. I'm not saying this as sort of me being a moral superiority, right? But in relation to myself, I have never written and published something that wasn't true. I can say things that aren't true because my thoughts go fast and I can think things that aren't true. But writing is distilled enough so that I kind of don't miss, at least when I judge myself. And I'm like, I better leverage that. I better keep writing. So this year I've been on a, as you might have seen, on a publish every week, write, even if it's small. Okay. So thank you very much for your beautiful question and research. This is has never happened to me, and I'm extremely honored.
You're welcome.
And so maybe also as an encouragement to anybody who might be listening to check their old writing and see if you're right. And to your question, looking at it right now, patience, consciousness, motion, have belief that your essence will reveal itself. Listen carefully to yourself and your surroundings. Let things happen to you, with you, around you, within you. Trust and joy. That's patience. That's good, right?
Yeah.
Motion, think up courses of action and plan them out. Take opportunities to help. Follow leaders you trust. I didn't know I wrote this. Start little. Doing something is always better than nothing. Consciousness, but not simply anything. Don't do simply anything. Spend your time, attention, and money wisely. Ask yourself where your behavior and your thoughts lead you. Adjust if you need, and patiently so you don't change from one day to the next.
Yeah.
Who wrote this? And so I think this is proto-tree behavior, I would say.
Yeah, you even and I'm not sure if it's in that article. For some reason, I don't think it is, but I might be wrong. Where you mentioned like there's three how do you say, it's not coin. Oh God, when you have exchanges of not, like you mentioned that you have time to spend, attention to spend, and money to spend. I don't, currencies. God, okay, they're like these
right.
three currencies. Where it's like time, attention, and money. And that was one of my favorite ideas where I was like, it makes a lot of sense, because all of these things are things that you have and you're investing in something, and like, how well are you filtering these three things? Like, how well are you filtering the way you're spending your time, or spending your attention, or spending your money? Because in like today, a lot of people are like, at least in my like niche circle, medium scene, like a lot of people are like, well, how are you spending your money? Be careful. Where are you investing, etc. All of that. But then it's like, yeah, but how are you spending your time? That's one as well. But then how you're spending your attention, like, what are you choosing to engage with and to think about and to process and to read? That's a very interesting thing to be aware of.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah. I think one of the things that was sort of tagline for my sabbatical was, they say time is money, right? But it's not true. Money is really time. So, take your money, trade it for time, buy your own stocks, which is time essentially, and then see if you can find out what you want and do it. That was my sabbatical project.
Yeah.
Took me a long time, and I still feel some weakness around this topic, getting maybe back into a job. Haven't really built out, like, obviously I'm sitting on a pile of gold here, but I haven't really found my way to build it out in a way that I could live off of it, and I would love to be teaching. And I admire you for working with high schoolers. And I think I'm also, like, the book I always wanted to write, which I haven't written yet, has the working title Book for the Kids. And, I'm like very much wanting to do the thing that many of us want to do, which is like drop the breadcrumbs you wish somebody had dropped for you, kind of thing. But yeah, I still think it's a decent advice, even though at the time, I think I was very into like mental hygiene and stuff. I'm not so
Yeah.
much anymore. I'm like I kind of started learning that I just enjoy also blasting my brain with like a bunch, like I like to hijack my attention a bit with like podcasts and funny
Yeah.
videos, and I'm not so harsh on myself anymore, mm, but I think the idea still kind of holds.
Yeah, I agree. And like that's one of the things that I say a lot of time is like when you start to be aware of the attention and what you consume, that doesn't mean that you can watch fail videos or something like that. It just means that you're
Yeah.
consciously deciding to do so. Like sometimes I'll go where I don't know, it's late and I'm like I don't wanna think. I just wanna be a vegetable looking at something. And sometimes that's okay. But you're consciously, and I'm like, I'm consciously choosing to do this. And I
And
feel
that's
like
really
that's the
important,
difference. Yeah.
because if you don't do that, you're that's like also bad for ADHD. Like
Hmm.
if you watch it in the tension zone of but I shouldn't, you're
Yeah.
not gonna have fun, and it's gonna like drain your energy really fast. It's like when you're in
Yeah.
Stardew Valley and you already don't have energy, and then you use your tools, and you're like you just fall over real quick.
Yeah.
But if you're like, you know what, this is what I need right now. Bring the reels, and you're like,
Yeah. And you're
you're like,
scrolling so
wow.
high. Exactly. It's
Yeah.
just it's up to you to do that. Okay, so I want to start by talking with the around your topic of the village, and this is basically like a series of 3 posts that got turned into. Oh, but I want to, before I go into that, I do want to say just a quick comment though. I feel like what you mentioned around being able to better, there you go, the cool one. You being able to monetize on whatever you have right now. I feel like that's one of the issues that I have with Teapot is that we have a lot of people in that space that are extremely bright, but lack the understanding of how to turn that brightness into something that offers value to that allows you to get paid. And my pet peeve with Teapot is that a lot of times people are not like they see that as somehow um like what's the word I'm looking for, like compromising their work. It's like, oh, I'm going to become a sellout by trying to have a course on this thing or something like that. And I feel like that's such a bad framework to look at that. And so yeah.
What would you advise people how to look at it? If you would I'll give you a setup, because I'm kind of one of them. I'm trying to get out of that trap, but so that's why I'm like excited to possibly get into sales right now, because I want to experience on my own body and my own soul getting back to like selling a product that I believe in, and then my game plan is to come back later to my own stuff and start selling it as hard as the thing that I'm getting paid for by a company
Yeah.
to sell, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's and what would your advice be to
Yeah.
people who are like, no, I'm gonna be a sellout. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm actually trying to do is exactly that. I've been trying to collect a bunch of thoughts on that and maybe do something around this topic, because one of the things that is, and once again, this is just my belief. It might not resonate, but I see if you hold an idea that can really help people, I see it as a selfish thing, not trying to give it to them and getting paid by that. And why? And I explain why they're getting paid by that. Because if you don't get paid, then you're just giving, you're not receiving, and that's not fair. Like it's great that we're like, and I think about it like with self love, like the idea of you need to fill your own cup first in order to then give it to others, etc. Why shouldn't it be that case when it comes to money? Why shouldn't you be able to first fill on your own health, make sure that your bills are taken care of, making sure that you're living well, making sure that you're able to sometimes splurge and go out and have like a fantastic meal or go to a concert that you enjoy, etc. And then you're be able to offer all of those things if you want to for free. But first, let's take care of your own wealth, right? And I say this because I've lived in situations where I was giving all of these ideas, all of these different things, and then I was looking at my bank account and I was thinking about, well, I guess it's rice and noodles again. And it's like, but once you're able to actually take care of that, like there's an underlying tension that disappears, and that you're able to use that newfound calm to create even more beautiful things. So the way I see it is, if once again, if you have a good idea, then you need to make sure that you find people that can benefit with that, and you need to somehow adjust. That's true. Adjust what you're doing in order to give people first what they want, and then what they need. And I feel like a lot of people in Teapot do the opposite. No, no, no. What, like, this is my idea. This is the way I'm presenting it. This is what you need to do. And it's like, okay, maybe people don't want to buy that. Maybe people are not interested in engaging with that. But if you change to, well, maybe this is like, if you understand that people want something else, maybe you tell them, well, this is what you need. And you're giving them what I want. You're giving them what they want. And then once you lure them in, you give them what they need. And that transformation is what I feel like makes the whole difference.
I think so too, but can I dig one
Of course.
deeper?
Yeah.
So if you would tell me that, I would say, and maybe somebody else would say, yeah, I get that. Rationally, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm, this you said two things is like fill your own cup and find product market fit, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, yeah, but I want two things. Like, I get that, and I'm fine. My cup is full. I have $100K in the bank. I've got sabbatical money. I'm all right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And still, I want to give my stuff, but I feel like I can't because two objections. One, like you said, I want to be authentic. I don't want to sell something that looks good, sounds good. I want to sell the truth. I'm looking for the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for the deep divine wisdom that I'm trying to acquire, and that's the only thing I care about right now. So I don't want to. I want
change.
I don't want to flip that. Second thing is, who am I to teach, have a course, even charge for that? I'm maybe afraid of power. I don't want to. I'm just a speck in the universe, just like everybody else. Why should people listen to me? And why should I put myself on the pedestal that I'm the big dog? So what would you say to that?
Like, why do you think I'm interviewing you?
Because you asked on Twitter who to interview, and I said me.
Yeah, but you said you, true. What do you think made me go like, yeah, that's such a good idea, let's do it?
I don't know, but maybe because I've been chilling on the timeline, spreading nice vibes, or maybe because some people said nice things about me.
Yeah, and that would be great. Like, I would set up a call with you. Why am I interviewing you? Why did I go through the work of finding an article that you wrote in 2019?
Maybe because I have a little bit of a body of work now, and because some of it is good, of quality. You actually
there's value
vibe
in
with it.
Yeah, there's value in it. So what I feel like, and I don't know how your education was, and we can talk about like or your schooling experience was, but I have this feeling that a lot of times what happens is you go through education and you end up associating this figure of the teacher as like not a good thing in some sense, but a bad thing in others. Like, it's like this authoritarian version of learning, where you have like this figure of power that says what you can or you can't do, or what's right or what's not right. Does that resonate with you in any way?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, yeah. Let's say I don't feel super bogged down by it, but like I feel like, I mean, I know many people feel like that. I feel like I'm a bit over it. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay,
please keep going.
Yeah, so the reason why I'm saying that is because we're talking about teaching a course, or like that was what literally would happen. You teach a course, but the words that you or like I'm not sure if you would teach a course. I'm just saying, like, if that's one example of something that you can build with all of the knowledge that you have.
Or anybody, right? Anybody.
Yeah,
talking to Teapot.
Yes, I'm talking with you because you're the one here. I would gladly talk with this.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I would gladly talk with everyone about this. But the thing is, you have that that knowledge, and so you could teach a course. But for some reason, the words that you used were I'm putting myself on a pedestal. And I feel like there's a huge difference between trying to teach something because you believe those ideas matter to those people and can help them, and put yourself in a pedestal. So there's degrees of power. And I feel like maybe what happens is there's an association with the moment that I get into a position of, I have something that you should listen to because I truly believe it can change your life. Like when people get in that position, they automatically assume that will turn them into, I'm in a pedestal, I've figured out life, like bow before me, settles, right? And I just don't think that's the case. Like you can be in a teaching position and you can be certain of your ideas being good for everyone else without going to a power trip that makes you feel like you're like this, I don't know, gigantic figure. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense. And I think there's a lot of allergy to power. I certainly have discussed it with my friends. I certainly feel it in me. But that also comes from, I think, knowing power a bit, having it a bit, like having something in me, not wanting that to go awry, like, or sideways. A lot of people are like into unschooling. So
Yeah.
I think you got the right metaphor, that they just learn to latently detest the teacher figure. But but those are not necessarily arguments, but that's why I'm asking you, because I want to hear this from somebody who gets it in a more mature way. And I think many people want to hear this, because what you want and what I want is that all our genius teapot friends do start teaching, right? And do more than tweeting, and do get out there and do provide value inside the scene and outside the scene. And I think this is, you introduced it as your pet peeve, and I'm supporting you, and I'm saying, I want to be the avatar for that right now. It's like, I'm going to get my job in the outside world, because I still feel I want to not like belabor my own wisdom right now with also the task to make me money. But long term, of course, that's what I want to do. And so I want to build it on the side. And
Which is perfect. Which is like, I feel like if that's what you want to do, go for it. Like have something that, allows you to make sure that you don't have to have this underlying tension of wealth, and focus on building it in a more sustainable way. Maybe you take longer, and that's fine. And you feel like, well, at least I haven't compromised my own principles, which is okay. I feel like at the end of the day, and this might be just my belief, and it's totally fine, and people don't have to, of course, believe this as well, but like, once I've been working on education. Like I gave my first class when I was 15 years old. That was when someone said, well, I want to learn how to play the guitar. Let's learn how to play the guitar. And so I've been in this position of education for a long time. And I feel like there's, once you see the full transformation that people get by fully engaging in your ideas, and I believe that a person can only fully engage with your ideas by having a more personal contact with that than tweets or even some articles on Substack, right? It has to be a learning experience in order to them be fully transformed. Once people do that, and you're at a position of understanding, like, I provided the environment for people to go from point A to point B, because you didn't do that. You provided the environment. That's also a very important difference, because if you're worried about, I'll let my ego or my power like go to my head. It's like, no, I don't think so. I think you can just create the environment for people to do that. And so, but once you see that like over and over again, you start to believe that, the environment that you're creating by sharing your ideas, by sharing your frameworks, by sharing your exercises is really worth it. But the thing is, and I'll finish here, and the thing is, like, you need to understand people. And so you can even offer your course for free. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I've done this, and I know a lot of people have done this, where it's like, I give a course for free to this person, and I'm asking $100 for this person. Which one of them has the best experience? And this one, in my case, 100% of the times has the best experience. The person that actually pays for it. Why? Because they value it more. And so it's almost like, in order for people to fully value your ideas, in order for them to be fully transformed by what you're saying, maybe you need to give them what they need, quote unquote, or what they want. It's just for them to pay for you in order to them to fully value whatever you're offering and being able to be transformed by that. And I feel like that's, if nothing else works, I feel like that's one of the strongest reasons why, if you have a body of work that can somehow teach people to live a better life, you should be like trying to understand how can you like price it in a way, even if it's a small value, even if it's a small price, like even though make people pay for it so they can fully experience whatever you're building. And yeah, that would be my closing thought on this front.
I hope you clip this and put it on Twitter so people can get out of their asses and make stuff happen.
Yes,
We
me
need
too.
it. And the world needs us. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But the world
Teapot
needs us,
superheroes.
exactly.
Let's go.
Yes, that's 100%. Now back to me interviewing you.
Yeah, sorry. Professional habit. I don't know.
Totally fine. Totally fine.
Thank you for this. I appreciate your insights.
No. Totally fine. I love it. So going back to The Village, like that's like a 3-part series of articles that you wrote. I really, really enjoyed that. The same way as the idea of the tree, which I feel like are very connected. But let me start by asking you, if people haven't read the Substack pieces, can you walk us through a little bit of what this concept of the village is?
Sure. I came up with the village in the beginning of 2022 with my aforementioned good friend Zebi. I didn't only have a band. We weren't only Starcraft buddies, but we were also our mutual life coaches. We helped each other, got on the phone almost every week or at least every month and did like monthly planning and blah, blah. So it's a new year. We're doing yearly planning, And I was like, how do I structure my life? What are the domains? So the village is a domain exercise. What are the domains that my life has? And then I was like, well, I'm a man. So I wrote down the man, and it's like, how is he doing? And then I was like, yeah, the man is okay, yeah, this and that, and like sort of counted out what my body, my identity, kind of what does it need? And then I was like, okay, so I looked around and I was like, well, my house, what's the house? So the house, how is the house doing? The house is okay. There's this, there's that, and then I came up with the domains: the man, the house, the garden, which is the place for creativity and play, the field, which is the place where repetitive work happens, that sort of more organizedly in straight lines, more like left hemisphere grows crops, the shop where aforementioned crops are sold, and then maybe the most important one that I first forgot that my good friend Louis always whips me to, which is the well, the source of the spiritual renewal. So wonderful, hexagonal 6-piece domain exercise, and I thought this is something, this is useful to me, and it's has this sort of game-like quality that can bring joy and help to somebody else. So at the same time, I did. Then in the spring of 22, I got into intellect, hosted some salons, and learned that the village brought much joy and was a very helpful framework for people. And yeah, shown it here and there, but yeah, it's sort of the thing that it's the most productized thing I've made. But as previously discussed, I haven't put a ton of work into it. But it's a great little tool.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really enjoyed was you even write about, well, you're describing a farming house or a farmer's house. Why are you calling it the village? And I feel like there's when I read it for the first time, the reason why I clicked it was an aesthetical reason. It's like the village conjures in me a certain image of connection and calm that I feel like really, really resonates. So So yeah, like one of the things I would love to do is I would love for you to, like, you gave the definitions of the different parts of the village. Can you walk us through how you actually go about embodying each one of those areas?
Sure. Can you ask me, what do you mean exactly by embodying those
So
areas?
yeah, I'll clarify. So, like, how do you go about and play in your garden? When you say that the garden is a place to play, like, what does that mean? What are you doing in there? If you're saying that the field is a place where you're seeding your ideas, like, what are you doing in there? And I'll start with those two because, as you mentioned, like, the shop is something that maybe is still on to develop. But let's start with those two, and then I'll leave a special place for the well.
Sure. So the garden and the field, yeah?
Yeah.
Um, let's see. I would also like to, I actually would like to briefly start with the house because
Of course.
it connects to something we talked about earlier. When we talk about games, and I talked about my desk, right? Um, in relation to setting up a sort of game that helps me get to my work quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So to get the ADHD minigun spinning quickly, you know. I just to the right of me here, I have a desk and also a whiteboard, and I sort of over the years have found, and at the time of writing The Village, it wasn't that well developed, and I thought, in my house is about my house, my room, your dwelling space is about it's about keeping you warm, keeping you clean with a bath, and keeping you rested and fed, you know, sort of the house. But there's also, we also work in our houses and we want to be productive. So isn't the bathroom an interface? Isn't the kitchen an interface? And isn't a bed an interface? These places that invite you to do a specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, if I want to be productive here in a certain way, then I better build some interfaces. And for like the ADHD component, it's for me all about having things ready at hand, you know. Things cannot be in a book. Things have to be on an open page. My to-do list is always open on like a notepad that doesn't close. It's just a ringed notepad that's open. My sort of longer term thoughts are on a whiteboard that's always there and open, you know. And so this is for me interface theory, domestic interface theory. And then we can come to the garden, which is about creativity and play. And by the way, in all the places, the center of the village is, of course, love or the tree, which is, in a way, the same thing, right? And people sometimes ask me, and where are the friends in here? And the friends are in every domain, of course, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You have a life and a love partner. You have friends that are so close to your body that they are part of the man, part of your identity. You can have roommates in your house. You can have your partner in your house. And I think the garden is the first component where friends get really interesting because, of course, we want to not just catch up over dinner with our friends, but we want to be creative and make stuff happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the garden was my sabbatical project. I thought, I've worked my ass off at Twitch for 4 years. I've even lived in, you know, my whole village while I was working at Twitch was totally occupied by the field, you know, the field and the shop, which are the same thing in employment.
Yeah.
The field is your shop. You sell your time, you sell your work. And I thought, no, this has to be split. Like, work has to be fun again, you know. So we have to have the garden, in which the image of the garden is about, I grab any seed from my pouch and I drop it in the floor, and out comes, you know, maybe it's a rose, maybe it's a pumpkin, I don't know, maybe it's a strange mix. I don't have to run the big crop farm that are the all the pumpkins or all the zucchinis. I can just have one zucchini here, one rhubarb there, and it's sort of this. And it comes from how I grew up in a village in my grandparents' garden where there was a plum tree and there was a apple tree and a strawberry patch and
Yeah.
a little bit of everything. That's a garden.
Beautiful.
And the important part is there's no should and there's no have to. Everything in the garden is there for joy. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to eat what you sow. You can just simply look at your beautiful pumpkin and be so happy with it. And so that was a very important. The house was still very physical in my own world here, but the garden was sort of a mental model of like, yes, I need to be able to do something productive, but it's chill. So it's like podcasting, writing, filmmaking, fucking around and finding out.
Yeah. And so that's a good answer. And I love how like anyone can just grab that mental model and look at their own gardens, right? And realize, well, what can I do that's fun and still meaningful and creative. When we go into the field, I want to quote you because you say something that really resonated with me. So I have this idea, like if I had a whiteboard where I write these long-term thoughts like you, this would be one of them. I have this idea that beauty is slow. So if you really want to appreciate something, if you want to see something that's really beautiful, usually you need to take the time to do so. And it's not that fast things cannot be beautiful; they can, but the perception of beauty has to be slow, and which I feel like it connects a lot with the slow living that you sometimes describe. And when I think about the field for the longest time, when I think about the concept of work for the longest time, because I told you like my story, creating a company, like being able to do that and creating all these different projects, I always saw it as something that was fast, right? And so it's almost like these two things don't combine. But then you have this line where you say, go onto the field, reach into your seed bag and sow it. Your seeds will be sorted in generations 2 and 3, but not in generation 1. The message is clear. One seed after the other. What will grow for them is a surprise. In the coming years, I can be more intentional with my work on the field. This year, I just have to change it from barren to tendon, 0 to 1, end quote. And I feel like when I was reading this, I was realizing this is such a beautiful perspective to bring into into work and into your day to day. But like, it's just I really enjoyed this. And yeah, I wanted to like your comment on the way that you process like the field and the slowness.
Yeah, great quote. You said to me before we recorded that you are potentially also an over categorizer before you even do anything, right? So, and now, as far as I understand you, that this podcast is bilingual and you just do whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Is that right?
Yeah.
So now you're doing that. Like you're just sowing out the seeds. You don't know what's the next seed you're going to grab. You have a bag full of seeds. Those are ideas. And you just sow them. And of course, you will reap from them. And in hindsight, you can now use the Limbo podcast and you can make a Portuguese and an English playlist. No problem.
Yeah.
But if you try to do this ahead of time, and I did it for years. It's unbelievable how much I've pondered and held myself back from just doing the thing. And I think many do this. It's like, I can't, like, imagine, I can't do a podcast because I haven't figured out yet if I should do it in English or German.
Yeah, exactly.
Very understandable for me, but also arguably very much besides the point, right? And very frustrating to have this devil in your head. So I said in 2022, that year of the village, said, no categories, no naming convention. If you want to write, put it on Substack. If you want to make a video, put it on YouTube. If you want to record a podcast, put it on Substack and on the audio. And and you can sort everything out. We can only understand our own life in hindsight. We can't plan it ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Planning is waiting. Waiting is decay. I mean, I'm not an absolutist about this, but
Yeah.
So that's where that's from. And look, if you look at, I made a YouTube. I just did the most simple vlog style, walking through the city while sputtering my thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm now doing the same with writing, and what I'm doing, I'll know afterwards. And I have one video that's called "The Power of the One-Off," and that's very much the same idea.
Mm.
Like, don't think that you have a whole fucking shelf to fill. If you look at the shelf behind you, like, would you be too fancy to just put a single book in there? No, right? And you don't have to put it top left, bottom right, you
Yeah.
just put it there, and then when it's full, you can sort the books the way you want them, But
Yeah.
if you don't buy a book because you don't know where it belongs, that's, I don't want to say the word, it's very stupid.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. So I know that we're short on time, but there's two questions that I want to ask you. You
How are you doing on time, by the way? I still have like half an hour.
Yeah, I have like
It's up to you.
a couple more minutes. Yeah, fine.
Okay,
It's fine. But there's still like two things that I wanted to ask you about. And both of them relate with the same thing. So one of the training sessions that I did, and that people really enjoyed, was around metaphors and finding a metaphor for your life and letting that be like one of your guiding principles. And of course, the village is in itself a metaphor, which I love, but you have another very strong metaphor, which is the tree. And so I have two questions about that. First one is like, why the tree and not anything else? And the second one relates with the poem that you wrote in your tree manifesto. And so maybe we'll start with why the tree, and then I'll ask the other one afterwards.
Sure. So the tree came before the village, as you would also assume.
Mm-hmm.
It's the case in the natural world, right?
Yeah.
Trees were there before there were villages. And so I was, at the beginning of my sabbatical, I was in a relationship that didn't last and that ended very badly. And in the relationship, there was a bit of a, I want to do this work, and had my ideas, and I suggested maybe my ex could help me, but she was a very fast mover, and that wasn't good for me. And I'm sorry that I suggested that to her, because I think that wasn't good for either of us. So, she was a fired up person, ready to work, using work as a means of existence and coping and whatever, it's not for me to judge. But I was still sort of teasing the strands apart, like so I was slow. I was very slow. I shouldn't have, in retrospect, belabored myself with wanting that's where the garden comes from, with wanting my creative ideas or wanting something from my creative ideas. I shouldn't have done that. I should have been, just let them be. And, they don't have to be. Okay, and so, and around that time, where I was not sure what's going on with me and how I can make stuff happen. And I hadn't figured my whole ADHD thing out, and I didn't have anything figured out. I was just going down the sabbatical rabbit hole, trying to live somehow. I had, with a good friend of mine, we went for a little journey, if you understand what I mean, psychedelic journey. And it was a pretty strong journey, let's say. And the image just came to me, hit me like a truck. I was like, who's slow and it works quite well for them.
Yeah.
It's the tree. The tree is a very unbothered being.
Hmm.
It just needs to. All it needs is time, and it's gonna figure it out. And if a tree can get blown over by the wind and still grow, and then just grows sideways, and then it grows sideways and up, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's always moving towards the sun, and you can't rush a tree. And the image for the wanting my creative work to bear fruit too soon is like yelling at a tree for fruit. It doesn't work. And so there is also another part of my work, which is life and work in the rhythm of the seasons, which is, of course, the tree is the symbol of the seasons for us.
Hmm.
And learning to say, hey, it's spring. It's not time to cash out.
Yeah.
Let's talk in half a year, right? When the buds have turned to fruit and the fruit are ripe and fall, and we can collect them. So that's where the tree came from, and it's never left me. And it also connects to my Transylvanian ancestry, where it is known that the Transylvanian Saxons are, they take their time, but they do things very well, and like,
Mm.
they are fine craftsmen, and what
Yeah.
comes out at the end is of great quality, and just like the wood and the fruit of a happy tree. So
Yeah. I loved your answer. And going through the tree manifesto and just listening now, like, the tree wouldn't be a metaphor that I use to describe me. I'm a little bit more fast paced, even though I appreciate beauty and try to slow down. But I know people that, like, I was reading through your tree manifesto and thinking, well, this is like this person, or this is that person. And just understanding, like, oh yeah, it's, if I want to help them, the best thing that I can do is just to give them time, because they'll figure it out. They don't need me to go in there and say, like, come on, let's go, move. They don't need that. They just need time in order to grow into becoming the beautiful tree that they are. Simon, this was beautiful. I really enjoyed our conversation. I'll ask you the last question. So, in the Tree Manifesto, you wrote a poem. I'm not reading the full poem, but I'll read two of the lines, and then I'll ask you a question. So it says, quote, "What's a man life but a tree, downwards firmly rooted, upwards free. Not free to go, but free to grow. This place is as good as any other. When the sun shines, why bother?" Beautiful, by the way. I was reading this and I was realizing that when we pick a metaphor to describe us, those metaphors come with we identify with them, right? But if we do it right, it also showcases all of the things that we can do and the things that we can't do. And I was reading through your poem, and the line "not free to go but free to grow" really resonated. And my question is, would you say that you had to cultivate this acceptance of not being able to go, but seeing that as a way to make sure that you kept growing?
yes, thank you. Yeah, this this poem always makes me emotional, and it's exactly right. I in my career I was, I followed the ideal of I was yearning for the life that was advertised at the time. Jet set, America, corporate living, corporate living well.
Yeah.
American Express, the American Express, and I had that. It was great. Ate very well, had a lot of miles, and that kind of stuff. But was I living well? No. And what was missing? Roots and home. And that's not for everybody. Not everybody needs that. Probably everybody needs it a little bit. But for me, this is the game character that I have, the tree, needs that. There's no point.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I could then trace back my story and realize, okay, my history is that of uprooting. I've been uprooted early in my life, sort of migration and following jobs, and I've done this in my own life. But I said, you know what? I'm going to put all my money where my legs are, and I'm going to get a nice flat that I can spend some time in, and I'm going to go to Berlin, and I'm going to make Berlin my home. And I didn't know it at the time, but now in hindsight, I can say all I needed to do was spend enough time here. And I realized I have not much urgency to go anywhere, to travel, I travel when my girlfriend suggested, or to see her, or to see my friends, or to see my family, but I'm here and I'm home, and I like being where I am and tinkering around. And so, but what this creates, and I think this is part of my life's work, is a gravitational field that, or if you want, it's the great shade under the canopy of the tree, where the friends come, and I'm emotional, but I'm experiencing this right now.
Beautiful.
Berlin, the scene in Berlin is growing, and it's beautiful. And I know it's partly because I'm here and I'm not leaving. And I know that some people it benefits people that I'm here and I'm
here.
Doing the resource sharing with the myceliums and the shading and that I'm not going anywhere. And it feels perfect to me as well. It's the role I can play very well. And so not
Beautiful.
Free to go, but free to grow.
Yeah. It makes so much sense, and thank you for that honest and raw answer. I feel like we always need balance. It's like nature. We always need balance. We need things that are in the same place and they're growing. We need things that are changing from one place to another and bringing all of those things. Like, it's almost like I'm a bird, I go into your tree, I take part of you and take you to other places, and those other places then get to go back and visit the first tree. So I feel like it's such a great metaphor. Simon, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciated it. If people want to connect with you, if people want to reach out, do more, what's the best place for them to do?
Yeah, thank you. Great reflection, great talk. I'm on Twitter. My name is Simon_Ohler, Ohler. On Substack, nowsimon.substack.com, NOW Simon. And there I'm writing. There are the podcasts. Also, Now Simon on pretty much anywhere else, YouTube. TikTok I've been messing with. And right now I think Substack is a good place. And the audio platforms, Spotify. The time is now for the podcast.
Yeah, we'll add all of those into the description. We need to do a version 2 where we just go into the podcast and share how is it to host people in a podcast. But for today, we'll leave it here. Simon, once again, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciated this. Guys, if you're listening please go follow Simon in all of these platforms. He's just a very, very good writer. Really interesting interviews as well. And so, go follow him. And while you're there, if you want to subscribe to Limbo and leave a review or a comment, we would appreciate it. Okay, thank you so much, Simon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.